So LLMs are used in many different ways. People use them to generate sonnets, write poems, write lyrics in lyrics to a song in the style of one of the Beatles or whatever, answer emails. But really, if you look at how most people interact with these systems today, they're using them for question answering. Most of the time, you go into ChatGPT, you go into Google, Bard, you go into Bing Chat, and you ask it a question, and it gives you an answer. So despite the fact they can do this whole slew of things, I would argue most people are using these systems today as question answering systems. So if you have a question answering system, in the literature from the NLP world, which is where my research has been in the last 10 years, you really have two types of QA systems. You have a closed book question answering system, and you have an open book question answering system. Let me just pause for a second here. So a closed book QA system is very much like if you're using GPT-4 outside of Bing. You ask it a question, it consults its wealth of knowledge about whatever, and it comes up with an answer. It doesn't cite sources, it doesn't fact check against Wikipedia or wherever. It uses its brain and it answers the question, like someone's doing in Jeopardy, right? That's closed book because there is no book, no reference material that it can reference. And thus it can't cite things if it does that, usually. I mean, it potentially can because it has a good memory, but in general, you don't get as many citations that way. The open book QA is like doing an open book test. If you do an open book test at school, you take the textbook in and you use it to answer the questions. So with an open book Q&A, you have a knowledge base, a knowledge store that the model is able to query when answering a question. And what it does is it does a query, it basically does a search against that knowledge base, pulls back relevant articles, summarizes them, and gives them back to the user. So the important part is that the LLM is not a knowledge source, is not a generator in that scenario. It is a reader of information. Usually a separate retriever model is actually used. So GPT-4 is not doing the retrieving. It may generate the query, but it's not running the retrieval, and different models doing that. And usually Google and Bing have just basically used their existing systems to do that retrieval step. And then the model is just basically acting as a summarizer, which is very important in a minute, as you'll see why we did what we did, is really just a summarizer of information. So you have this big model that's been trained to do 50 different things, however many different things, but really you're using it as a summarizer or reader of information.